Our number, bottom of the hour, we're going to talk to Tori Johnson from Good Morning America, contributor to Good Morning America. She's got a special segment. I've been watching it for years now. Her book is called The Shift. It's a New York Times bestseller, and it's about weight loss. The Shift, subtitled How I Finally Lost Weight and Discovered a Happier Life. Tori's got some really outside-the-box ideas, and we're going to be talking to her in the bottom of the hour about her book, The Shift. So get on, if you got questions or comments or success stories, get on board early at 855-660-4261, 855-660-4261. That's our number on the bright side. If you want to join us in our weekly conversations, myself and Dixie Sedgwick, we do weekly conversations, phone conversations, and you're welcome to join us. Last week we talked about the Swear V 3-day cleanse. The week before that we talked about ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. We take questions. I usually talk for 15 or 20 minutes about one topic or another. This Sunday we're going to talk about male pattern baldness. And then we take questions for the last segment. The phone calls last about 25 to 30 minutes. Dial the number 605-562-3140, 605-562-3140, 605-562-3140. Participant access code 444-973-pound. We do them every Sunday, 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Love to have you join us. If you're interested in being put on our email list and for being notified for our videos, I'm doing skincare videos with Amanda Rideout, health coach. We do them once a week, and we can put you on an email list and notify you when a new one comes out if you like. Yesterday, Amanda and I talked about essential oils. And that was kind of an interesting little conversation. We had all the benefits of essential oils, the ancient legacy essential oils. There's a really neat story about the ancient legacy essential oils. And we talked about that on our YouTube video. And if you're interested in being put on a mailing list, please send me an email and just put in the subject heading, yes, I want to be on a mailing list or something along those lines, so I can just see it when I scan through my Gmail. Send a request to ben@ksco.com. Ben at K for King, S for Sam, C for Cat, O for Oscar. Ben at ksco.com. Okay, we'll take your calls in our next segment, 855-660-4261. A couple more things about prostaglandins. We've been talking about hormone health. Prostaglandins are a type of hormone. They're an ultra short-acting hormone. Technically, they call them autocrine hormones or paracrine hormones. When you hear crine, like endocrine, that refers to hormones. Para means next to. Auto means the same as or self. And an autocrine hormone is a hormone that activates the cell that made it. Or a paracrine hormone is a hormone that activates neighboring cells. And this gives the body a tremendous amount of responsiveness. So the brain doesn't have to be involved with autocrine and paracrine hormones. With all the other hormones, the brain and the central nervous system is involved. But paracrine and autocrine hormones act locally. So you cut yourself, boom. Prostaglandins are secreted and the inflammatory process ensues. In fact, anytime you have inflammation, anytime you have any kind of inflammatory process or any degenerative health issue, you're looking at prostaglandin involvement. And why is that important? Well, it turns out that prostaglandin deficiencies are very common, much more common than anybody suspects and much more common than you're going to hear from the modern medical model. And it should come as no surprise when you realize that prostaglandins are a type of essential fatty acid. Essential meaning you have to get it in a supplement or in your diet. Prostaglandins, these super mega, ridiculously, crazily important, fast-acting autocrine, paracrine hormones are a version of omega-6s and omega-3s. They're activated essential fatty acids. You take your ultimate EFAs. From your Healthy Start Pack. And the body converts the ultimate EFAs via several steps. It converts them into an activated EFA called prostaglandins. And what happens when these activated EFAs kick in? What happens when essential fatty acids are turned into prostaglandins? Everything happens, pretty much. You get opening and closing of blood vessels. You get clotting or declotting of blood cells. You get nerve pain or relaxation of pain, neuropathies or anti-neuropathy. You get labor contractions, premenstrual syndrome contractions, menstrual contractions, inflammation, anti-inflammation, movement of nutrients into cells, including calcium. Prostaglandins regulate all your other hormones. I call prostaglandins master hormones. That means essential fatty acids, in a sense, are a type of master hormone. You think that makes your ultimate EFAs incredibly important to supplement with? You better believe it does. It's hard to say what the most important nutrient to supplement with is. Probably there isn't one most important, but if you wanted to make a case for the essential fatty acids being the most important nutritional supplement you could take, It's hard to argue. It's hard to argue with that via this prostaglandin connection. Prostaglandins affect cell growth. They affect kidney filtration rate. They affect stomach acid secretion. They affect the mucus lining in the digestive tract. They affect the brain and the central nervous system. Pretty much everything has some degree of responsiveness to prostaglandins or deficiencies in prostaglandins. And when I say deficiencies, I'm going to say this a lot because it's so important. When I say deficiencies in prostaglandins, I want you to think deficiencies in essential fatty acids. If you're not taking your EFAs, folks, if you're not taking your ultimate EFAs as a supplement, I like 9 a day, 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, 3 at night, but at least 3 or 6 a day. If you're not taking them, the chances are pretty darn good that you're EFA deficient and ultimately prostaglandin deficient. And that means health issues. That means health problems. That means inflammation. That means itching. That means rashes. That means pain. That means cramping. That means blood pressure problems. This is all secondary to, all following EFA deficiency, which is tremendously, tremendously compound. This is the take-home message. This is what I want you guys to hear. And we're going to be talking more about this in the coming days. I want you to hear this. Prostaglandin deficiency is much more common than anyone realizes, and it's connected to essential fatty acid deficiency. We consider this key relationship between EFAs and also fat metabolism and fat malabsorption issues, gallbladder problems, liver problems. 100 million Americans have fatty liver disease. When we consider all of the problems associated with fat, either getting fats into our diet or getting fats into our body or absorbing or utilizing them, it's very easy to understand the problem with the relationship with, or the importance, I should say, of essential fatty acid supplementation. They're not in the food, folks, unless you're eating fresh, raw nuts and seeds and lots and lots and lots of them, lots of fish. It's pretty much impossible to get it from food because we cook. You cook your food, you lose your EFAs. The fact that EFAs are not in our food and supplementation with essential fatty acids is pretty much reserved for the few special, highly intelligent, motivated folks who are listening right now. You guys listening to The Bright Side or listening to Dr. Glidden's program or listening to Dr. Wallach's program and other nutritional health radio shows. With the exception of the few select folks who pay attention, most people are going to be deficient in EFAs, and that means ultimately the odds are pretty darn good you're going to be deficient in prostaglandins. Okay, we are going to take your phone calls in our next segment, 855-660-4261, and at the bottom of the hour we'll talk to Tori Johnson about her book, The Shift, subtitle, How I Finally Lost Weight and Discovered a Happier Life. I'm Pharmacist Ben. You're listening to The Bright Side. We'll be back after this. Okay, we are back on The Bright Side. I'm Pharmacist Ben. We'll continue talking about prostaglandins. Then we'll get into another very interesting autocrine or paracrine hormone that's we've only really known about for about 20 years or so. It's related to arginine. Some of you guys know what I'm talking about. We'll do that after we finish talking about prostaglandins. And let's see what else I want to tell you here. If you're interested in reading a little bit more about prostaglandins, read Barry Sears' Zone books that came out a while ago. I guess they came out in the late 1980s or early 1990s. The Anti-Aging Zone. He's got 3 or 4 of them. And he talks a lot about prostaglandins and how they're related to essential fatty acids and why essential fatty acids are so important. I don't 100% agree with everything Barry Sears says in his books, but he does have a lot of good information about prostaglandins and about other hormones as well. And he writes in a very easy to understand style. You can get his books really inexpensively now because they've been out for so long. And there's some very helpful information, although, as I say, I don't 100% agree with everything he talks about in his own books, but he does have an interesting chapter or two specifically about prostaglandins. He also talks about serotonin, he talks about insulin, he talks about estrogen and testosterone as well. Okay, we'll continue talking prostaglandins tomorrow, and at the bottom of the hour here in our next segment, we're going to talk to Tori Johnson about her weight loss book, The Shift. Tori Johnson is a contributor to Good Morning America. She's got an interesting segment that's been on for several years. She also has an interesting story to tell, personal story to tell, about how she lost weight and about why she lost weight, and she's also got some good tips for weight loss, too. And we'll talk to Tori here in the bottom of the hour. Take your phone calls now at 855-660-4261. I'm Pharmacist Ben. You're listening to The Bright Side. Chloe in Texas. Welcome to The Bright Side. What's up?
Hello, Ben.
Good morning. What's going on?
How are you?
Doing good. How about you? How can we help
fine.
you?
Yes, I've been listening to your show for a while, and I just need help with something. I've noticed that my hair falls out a lot during the summer, So I was listening to you, and you said to take a lot of vitamin C and sea salt.
Well, not for hair loss necessarily, but that's definitely a good idea to take vitamin C. I don't know what you mean by a lot, but it's a good idea to take vitamin C and sea salt. Hair loss is a couple. You want to talk about hair loss, or did you have a question?
Yeah, yeah. What I noticed is that where I live is very, very hot, and I feel so tired.
Yes, you have a thyroid. That's all classic signs of a thyroid problem, and it's not uncommon.
And I bruise a lot too.
You what? You bruise a lot?
I bruise, yeah.
Okay, none of those are good. None of that.
Okay.
None of those are good signs. Your body is breaking down. How old are you, ma'am, Chloe?
40.
Okay, well, you're young, so this should not be occurring. So these are red flags. These are shots across the bow. These are the beginning signs of the degenerative disease process. And if you don't have any specific, frank, blatant degenerative diseases, they're on the way unless you start to make some changes. So praise God for your falling hair and praise God for your bruising, because those are signals for you. Those are signs for you, and they're diagnostic tools that will allow you to sense or to know when you're getting better and when you're getting worse. You know, when the hair falls out more, and when you're more tired, and when you got more bruising, you're getting worse, and vice versa. Alternatively, when they get better, you're getting better. So here's the deal. Number one, it sounds to me like you got a thyroid problem, but that's not, everybody has a thyroid problem. That doesn't really tell us anything. And by the way, people out there listening who think that taking iodine is going to somehow reverse a thyroid problem, that's not true. And it's unfortunate that we're led to believe, unfortunately, that's the case, that iodine is some kind of magical remedy for the thyroid. It is absolutely not. Is iodine important? You better believe it's important. It's incredibly important. Doesn't mean you take iodine and your thyroid improves. The biggest problem associated with thyroid is some kind of long-term chronic stress on the body. Long-term chronic stress. That usually means something in the digestive system and the blood sugar system. Those are the two things to focus on first and foremost. Now, does it mean that's all that's going on? No. But that's the foundation. You want to think of the disease process, heart disease, cancer, skin diseases, whatever, as following what I call a triangle, or the triangle of disease. The triangle of disease is the digestive system as the bottom point on a triangle. Picture a triangle in your head, and at the bottom of the triangle you have a foundation. On the left-hand side of the base of the triangle, you can put the digestive system. On the right-hand side of the base, you can put the blood sugar system. And at the point of the triangle on top, you put the thyroid and the adrenal glands. And that's how all disease progresses. Digestive, then blood sugar, then thyroid, adrenal thyroid, I should say, and then everything else happens. But if you cut off the foundation, the top is going to fall down on its own. It's going to correct itself. And the foundation is the digestive system and the blood sugar system. And that's a long roundabout way of saying, Chloe, focus on your digestive system first. Get a notebook and start writing all your problem foods down and digest. You got to have digestive problems. Absolutely. And I'm not psychic. I'm not a wizard. I'm just telling you how the body breaks down. I don't know you, never talked to you, but based on your symptomology, 100% guarantee you're not processing your nutrients. So until we do that, until we fix that, nothing else is going to work. Everything else will be a waste of time until we fix the digestive problem. So focus on digestive symptoms and link them to problem foods and eliminate those foods. It helps to write them down in a food diary. Get on the BioLumin Nightly Essence today, not tomorrow, not the next day, today. 3 capsules in the morning, 3 capsules at night. At least order it today. And then also eating fermented foods can help you. Then other strategies for digestive health, the Z-radical or the fucoidan Z can help coat the digestive system and improve healing of the digestive tract lining. You might also want to get yourself some glutamine powder, which is very effective as fuel for the cells of the digestive system, maybe a teaspoonful of glutamine powder a day. Use your ultimate enzymes after all meals and a little bit of apple cider vinegar with it. If you want to throw in a few extra things, you might want to get yourself some lecithin and some bile salts, B-I-L-E, bile salts, and perhaps some pepsin, HCl. Those are all available in health food stores.
Is it bile salts? Is it the same as ox bile?
Yes. Okay. Basically. Not exactly, but basically. Then you want to start stabilizing your blood sugar system by eating more protein and less blood sugar spiking foods. And that includes breads and pastas and potatoes and rice. I'm not saying zero tolerance here, although you might want to have zero tolerance for the crappy foods like desserts and soda pop. You might want to avoid those entirely. But
I cut out the gluten.
Not just gluten, ma'am. Not just Chloe. I'm not talking gluten. Okay, gluten definitely it's a good idea to cut out gluten, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about floury foods, starchy foods. There's no gluten really in potatoes, but those can mess up your blood sugar too. Potato without the peel is a big lump of sugar. All right, the peel is great, but the middle part, which we all love, is sugar. So eliminating those and eating more protein. You might try some coconut oil, which has a stabilizing effect on blood sugar. Get on the Sweeties also, which has a stabilizing effect on blood sugar. And the Healthy Start Pack is probably a good idea for you as well. The essential fatty acids can help you with your blood sugar. And the Beyond Tangy Tangerine, which is loaded with B vitamins, can also be important for blood sugar. And then last but not least, one of the best ways to correct hypothyroidism, low thyroid, which it sounds like you're dealing with, is slow, deep breathing. That stabilizes the stress glands, the adrenal glands, and that can help restore the thyroid back to health. Iodine can help you too. It's not, I didn't mean to diss on iodine. It can be helpful. Just you don't want to think of it like a cure for thyroid issues, but definitely it's a good idea maybe to get on some iodoral, iodine, or the nascent iodine. Dr. Group's nascent iodine is also a good source of iodine. Okay, and then once you start rectifying the digestive system, stabilizing the blood sugar system, and calming the body down using oxygen, you should notice that you're feeling better, and then you're also your hair is not falling out as much. Last but most certainly not least is it's troubling. The bruising is very troubling because that means the body's starting to break down. Blood vessels are starting to break down. A couple of interesting strategies or nutritional strategies. One is vitamin K, and you'll have to supplement with that. Vitamin K2. Maybe anywhere from 1,000 to 5,000 micrograms of vitamin K2 a day. And then in addition to the vitamin C that you're getting in the Beyond Tangy Tangerine, you might want to throw in another gram or two of vitamin C a day. It's a lot of good information for you, but it's by no means comprehensive. There's lots more you can do. But that's a good start, and thanks for your call, Chloe. Appreciate it. And God bless. Have a beautiful day. All right. We're going to talk to Tori Johnson in our next segment. I'm Pharmacist Ben. You are listening to The Bright Side on the Genesis Communication Network. And in that vein, I am very honored and proud and pleased to welcome our guest to the bright side. Tori Johnson is well known for her work on Good Morning America. She does a weekly segment called Deals and Steals. She's a weekly contributor to WABC, which I used to listen to as a kid. And she's also the author of a really cool book, which came out last year. It's now in paperback, called The Shift, subtitled How I Finally Lost Weight and Discovered a Happier Life. When I first read this book, I was very impressed. I read a lot of weight loss books, but there's some really good tips in this book. And Tori herself is she knows what of what she speaks. She's personally lost a lot of weight using her program, and we're going to talk to Tori about some of her ideas right now. Thank you for joining us on the Bright Side, Tori.
Thanks for having me.
Greetings. So the shift. What is the shift, first of all? Tell us what that means.
The shift was my journey, my continuing journey to change my mind for a better life. I realized that after trying and failing at diet after diet after diet, that I needed to just change the way that I thought about dieting, about healthy eating, healthy living. I had to sort of like rethink all of that. And in that process, I realized that, what I put in my head was more powerful than what I put in my mouth.
That's so powerful. That is such an amazing statement. We poo-poo mind-body medicine. We scientists, folks in the scientific world, poo-poo mind-body medicine because we think, well, that means I'm going to think myself thin. But it's not really what you're talking about. You're talking about changing your entire attitude, right?
Absolutely.
Not just affirmations.
All the things. Absolutely. Yeah. This is not about I can just sort of say a few prayers and, will the pounds to disappear. This is about, making a long-term permanent mental commitment. It's about recognizing that diets are a temporary pause on bad behavior, and that if you want to lose weight and lose it for good, it's a lifestyle change. It's not something you do for 2 weeks or 2 months and, sort of that's it, and then you go back to your old ways of eating. It's, it's rethinking sort of all of that. It's rethinking the idea of being just resigned to being overweight. When you give up on a diet, you think, you know what, I was just meant to be this way. These are my genes. This is my destiny. There's nothing I can do about it. So when we talk about sort of reimagining the way you think, it's those kind of things, like retraining your mind to know that the past and the present don't have to dictate the future. Like if you want to change, you can. That's
awesome. Now you lost, last I heard, 70 pounds, right?
Yep. So the book chronicles a 1-year journey in which I lost 62 pounds during that year, and the book came out in hardcover a year ago, and all the naysayers said, like, yeah, we'll see where she is a year from now, but she'll gain it all back.
Yeah.
And not only did I not gain it back,
you lost
but a year
more.
Later, I've lost even more.
That's
It's
awesome.
almost 80 now, and I never set an end date nor a magic number. For me, I'm a work in progress, and I think that matters a lot. When I started this, I thought, like, okay, I'll lose 20 pounds, and I bet if I lost 20 pounds, like, that'd be fine. And, I realized, like, when I lost 20 pounds, like, I couldn't even notice that I lost 20 pounds. And so at that moment, I thought, you know what, I'm not aiming for a number. I'm not aiming for a date. It's sort of like I just want to live healthy, period.
That's exactly right. It's not so much the weight as much as it's the health issue, right? So you probably feel better. You got more energy.
For me, I had not gone to the doctor in more than a decade because I didn't want a lecture about my weight. And so I hid from going to a doctor, like a horrible thing. Like if my kids knew that about me, I would be ashamed. Like that's not the kind of mother I want to be or the kind of person I want to be. And so I realized that, okay, if losing weight's going to be what it takes for me to go to the doctor, like I have to like change. And so it's so freeing to not put like good energy toward all that sort of negative thought, to not have to hide and come up with excuses and sort of live in a way that you're not fully comfortable living. And so it's been so freeing mentally to just make a shift.
How about do you have a spring in your step now and you feel lighter on your feet and you got more energy and all that? I mean, what about the non-weight benefits, physical benefits to losing 60 or 70 or 80 pounds?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's all of that. There's, there's the fun little frivolous things like, going shopping for clothing and not leaving a dressing room frustrated because nothing fits. There's, the excitement when, a friend's wedding invitation comes. I can be excited for their, upcoming nuptials instead of like dreading, oh my God, everyone's going to be wearing a strapless dress and I'll be the only person in pants, and so I'm not going. Like, all of that kind of stuff, it's so freeing to look at pictures and say like, oh my gosh, you don't have a triple chin anymore. Like, those are,
you didn't have a triple chin.
That kind of stuff. Like,
can you imagine yourself? Can you imagine you did?
Yeah, totally.
Oh my gosh,
my kids all the time, like for sort of kicks, they'll Google pictures of me and they'll be like, "Oh my God, Mom, like you see what you used to look like?" I'm like, "Yes, like please don't show me that. Like let's take it off the internet." And yet, some of those awful pictures are such a powerful tool in keeping me on track because I can look at those pictures and say like, I'm never going back to that. Like that's never going to be me again. Like I'm horrified that I let that happen to myself, but I don't have to go back there. And so I think, bad pictures, most people who are overweight and unhappy with how they look, they rather be the one who takes the picture than to be in the picture. And I think looking at a lot of those pictures and sort of owning your reality, that's part of the mental shift. That's part of saying, like, you know what, that cupcake's not worth it because I don't want to look like that anymore.
That's great. Now, what was the first thing you did? There's a lot of people listening who are in your position, or in the position you were in, I should say. What was the first thing you did? What's the first step that somebody can take if they are committed to actually really making a change like you described?
So accepting that you're in this for the long haul. Like there's no quick fix. There is no, pill, potion, or plan that's going to melt away the pounds. It's all about patience and perseverance. And you have to embrace that. You have to accept that. We live in a culture that wants instant results. We live in a culture that promises, every diet book is like lose, 20 pounds in 10 days, easily melt the pounds away, continue to enjoy all your favorite foods. And you're going to have to make some big changes, some hard changes. And so recognizing that there's no quick fix is one of those things. And then the other is really rethinking how you have viewed weight loss. And for me, the biggest thing came from this concept around cheat days and moderation. And so every diet says, like, you can enjoy all the foods you love, just do it in moderation. And there's diet ads that have pictures of, like, ice cream and mac and cheese. And it's like, ice cream and mac and cheese, like, are not weight loss foods, period. They're just not. Like, it doesn't care what plan you're on. Like, that doesn't work. And what I discovered was that there were a lot of similarities for me in losing weight to people who had quit drinking and smoking. And someone who wants to give up, a smoker who wants to give up cigarettes,
you can have a pack.
Celebrate like a 2-week milestone with a pack
smoking.
of cigarettes. Like,
yeah, right.
You know, an alcoholic can't celebrate a month of sobriety with a beer. And
you can't have a cheat day. You can't have a cheat day where you get drunk. Are you saying? Where you just get totally hammered and plastered? No, okay. I misunderstood that. I'm just kidding. Tori, that's great idea. Great advice. Moderation. I've always been suspicious about this idea of all things in moderation. Hang tight. We got to take a break, and then we'll continue. I want to talk about clear nail polish when we come back. You have a really interesting take on some diet strategies, hands-on, real practical diet ideas. I'm Pharmacist Ben. You're listening to The Bright Side. All right, welcome back to The Bright Side. I am Pharmacist Ben. We're talking to Tori Johnson about her book, The Shift, How I Finally Lost Weight and Discovered a Happier Life. Tori, before you went to break, you were mentioning moderation, and I was always suspicious about this idea of moderation. So you're talking zero tolerance for weight gain foods, for bad foods. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm saying that you have to break away from this idea that, you know, you're living for the barbecue potato chips, you're living for the cupcake, that you might love those things, but they don't love you back. And if you're going to make long-term sustainable change, you've got to, you know, rethink sort of the foods that are good for you. And, you know, we don't need anyone to tell us, like, that a cupcake isn't good for us, but sort of sticking to that and believing it and honoring yourself and your weight loss journey means, you know, making a mental commitment to changing.
Okay, well, I'm 100% on board with the whole idea of the mental nature of health and health in general, Tori, not just weight loss, but certainly with weight loss. Let's talk some practical, really hands-on ideas. Not that attitude and mental isn't practical, but some real hands-on things, physical things that we could do. You have an interesting take on clear nail polish. I love what you said about that. Give us your clear nail polish tip.
I'll just tell you. So the clear nail polish is one of the things that breaks us of mindless eating and mindless snacking. So if you're somebody like me who at 2 o'clock or 10 o'clock is like, oh my gosh, I need to go to the refrigerator and find something to eat, like you're not even really hungry, but you sort of like, it's time for a snack. And that kind of snacking derails us. So for me, I found that putting on clear nail polish keeps me away from the kitchen because I don't want to ruin my manicure. And I'm not going to put wet nails in a bag of chips. I'm not going to put wet nails in the refrigerator. And what's important is, and you know what, some weeks I'd have like 10 coats of nail polish because like, you know, it prevented me from snacking. And it's important to just know in advance what is going to be your go-to distraction. So for me, it's clear nail polish. For you, it could be, you know what, I'm going to play a video game. I'm going to walk my dog. I'm going to take a piece of gum.
I like brushing your teeth. I brush my teeth because I don't want to eat. Yeah, I don't want to eat after I have a nice, right? That's what I use.
Absolutely, brushing your teeth. Some people it's knitting. It's like whatever it is, know it in advance so that when that moment comes, like you just know, it's 10 o'clock, I'm not going to the kitchen, I'm going to do this instead. And just by pausing for a momentary distraction, you can almost always talk yourself off the ledge because mindless eating is about not thinking. It's literally about sort of doing it without thinking. And when you can pause, you often make the right decision. And the other sort of tactic around pausing is asking yourself before you eat something, preference or priority. So my preference, hands down, would be to eat, potato chips as opposed to broccoli. I mean, duh, like who I'd rather have like something yummy. But my priority is to lose weight and to live healthy. And so priority trumps the instant preference. Priority trumps that sort of momentary preference. And I know I'm not going to be happy if I give in to the preference because it's totally derailing my priority. And, that helps you make a good choice. Typically there's donuts in the office and like all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I just ate 3 donuts. How did that happen? Like you weren't even thinking. And so getting into thinking before you do it, again, tends to lead you to the right choice.
Okay, now we talked about the mental stuff, and it is very important, and I agree. And we talked a little bit about the physical stuff, but what about feelings and emotions? What about emotional eating? Eating when you're depressed, or eating to alleviate depression or stress, feeling kinds of things. Eating how does that fit in? So how do you handle that? I mean, it's one thing to... Go ahead.
I think that's very real, and here's what I would say to that. I am proof that eating and having, those indulgences doesn't take away the depression. It momentarily masks it. So we tend to think, like, I'm so upset, like, I need some chocolate cake. I'm so upset I'm going to get a pizza. I'm so upset I'm going to do this. And you know what? After you do that, you don't feel any better. You're more upset because now not only does that same problem exist, but you've just eaten sort of garbage that makes you feel awful. And so what I've discovered is that a focus on healthy eating, a focus on changing your body can help to combat a lot of that depression, a lot of those problems, because it's one area where you've totally taken control, where you're making like such good things happen that it's such a perfect place to channel a lot of your energy. You know, it's for me, it's been like an enormous help. It's made me happier. It's made me more positive. It's made me be able to deal with real life sort of, you know, challenges in a much healthier, better way because I feel good about myself.
Okay, so healthy eating. You have in the book, you talk a lot about carbohydrates and carbs. You mentioned them as guidelines. So let's go over a couple of them. Why don't you just give us a couple, and then I had a quick question about some of them in the book.
So I think the two things that matter for anybody, like I don't advocate a specific plan. I only share what I did. And I'm the first to say, like, I'm not a doctor, trainer, nutritionist. Like, I'm an ordinary girl who figured this out for myself very successfully. And the two critical things for me are eat less. Like, if you're overweight, you eat too much. It's like, it's plain and simple. It's like, you got to eat less. And so for me, it was avoiding snacking, cutting portion sizes, not eating as much, period. And then the second is what I did eat had to be smarter and better than what I was eating before. And I know from my diet history that low carb is my winner. And a few weeks ago, big studies came out that sort of compared low fat diets to low carb diets, and hands down, low carb won in terms of weight loss and overall health. And so, you know, that doesn't mean like you eat bacon all day, right? It just it means that you've got to know the carb content, you know, of what you eat. And I was very, very, very strict on limiting my carb intake. I'm much more lenient now because I am trained to not overdo it because I've been in this for so long now. But whether low carb is your plan of choice or not, it doesn't matter. You could do paleo, vegan, like you do whatever you want. Your plan won't work though if your mind isn't committed to success.
You know, I was pleased to see that you and I have the same kind of outside the box idea about fruit. And I tell people fruit juices and small amounts of fruit, but you say avoid all fruit. Let me hear your rationale on that. I do.
So I eat berries now, but we think that like fruit is like super, super healthy for us. And for someone who's losing weight, a lot of fruit is not because it metabolizes to sugar that's ultimately stored as fat. And so, you know, I see people all over New York City and frankly everywhere I travel who are downing these like, you know, 40-ounce big gulps of smoothies and fresh juices and thinking that that's going to help them lose weight. I want to like take it from their hand and say, like, sweetheart, that is killing you.
Yeah.
Like,
how about the companies? How about the companies that are selling the stuff and marketing it like Jamba Juice, marketing it as health foods?
I know.
That's
but
terrible.
You know what? For some people, it's okay. And I think that, you know what? We have to take personal responsibility. And so, you know, it's up to us to make smart choices. For some people, they can have unlimited Jamba Juice, and they're going to still be, you know, perfectly healthy and at an ideal weight, and their body can do it. But if you are overweight and you want to lose weight, like, that's not your friend, you know? A gigantic, you know, 40-ounce thing of Jamba Juice, like, just that's not your friend.
So what are your
it'd be better for you to have like a bowl of berries than a gigantic thing of, you know, smoothies.
So what is your favorite delicious, yummy food that nobody would ever have a problem eating, that people could eat a lot of, or that you could eat a lot of?
Pickles.
What is it?
Pickles is like I'm in love with pickles still to this day. Like garlic, sour, crunchy. I only like one kind of pickle, and I'm like a total pickle snob connoisseur. And they're hard to find, but they sell them in supermarkets here, and they're just like crazy garlic, sour, crunchy, unbelievable pickles.
So you're exploiting.
Don't you want a pickle now?
I really do, and I love pickles, and they're good for your digestive system too, by the way.
Good.
Yeah. So how about?
I was nervous. I was on Dr. Oz, and I was nervous that he was going to tell me like, "Oh, it's so full of sodium, it's a bad snack." And instead, he said, "This is a perfect snack."
It is a perfect snack. He's absolutely right. It's great for your digestive system. And you mentioned a couple of really important things: spices and crunch, or spices and texture. And you can exploit spices and texture as appetite suppressant for satisfaction. So you don't have to struggle. It doesn't have to be a suffering kind of thing. Losing weight doesn't have to entail pain and suffering and angst.
Exactly.
The way we think it does.
And I, you know what, when I started this, if you would have said to me, okay, listen, you're going to give up everything you like and, for the next year and you're only going to lose about a pound a week, I would have said, no way, not happening, because we want everything yesterday. And if not yesterday, okay, tomorrow. We want everything so fast. And one of the big things I learned was to give myself the luxury of time. And in the course of a year, I lost 62 pounds that first year, as I told you, and the year went by. When I look at it in retrospect, the year flew by.
It always does,
so
Tori.
Ask yourself. It always does, right?
Yeah, it always does.
Ask yourself, if I started now, what amazing thing could I acclish if I took consistent action every day for the next year?
That's awesome.
And it flies by.
Tori, we're out of time. The hour flew by. The half hour flew by. I appreciate you being on the air. The book is called The Shift. It's on Amazon, right? You get it at bookstores everywhere, correct?
Bookstores everywhere.
All right. And what's your website, Tori, real quick for the listeners?
Shiftwithtori.com. Shiftwithtori.com. All the connections to me there. Thank you.
Thank you, Tori. Have a beautiful day. Thank you so much. That was Tori Johnson. Her book's The Shift, How I Finally Lost Weight and Discovered a Happier Life. I'm Pharmacist Ben. Tomorrow we'll continue talking about prostaglandins and hormone health. You've been listening to The Bright Side on the Genesis Communication Network. Have yourselves a spectacular, wonderful, beautiful day. I'm Pharmacist Ben. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye for now.